The Salton Sea Shape of the Earth investigations began on June 10, 2018, when the Independent Investigations Group, Nat Geo, and a bunch of flat earthers met there to do some observations.
We invited a group of flat earthers to join us as we put the curvature of the Earth to the test. We're on our way to the Salton Sea to not prove but reconfirm that the Earth is a globe and not a disk.
IIG's first blunder of the day was believing that the alleged rotundity of the Earth can be verified from the Earth. While we are able to verify that there is no detectable curvature from the Earth, it's impossible to verify curvature from the Earth itself. But don't take my word for it. Here's Globe Earth hero Neil deGrasse Tyson telling us the same thing.
All right, listen, B.O.B., once and for all. The Earth looks flat because, one, you're not far enough away at your size. Two, your size isn't large enough relative to Earth to notice any curvature at all. And that dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon, what's his name? Felix Baumgartner. He would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe. You don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat.
So according to Neil, we can't even detect curvature from 25 miles up in the sky, let alone from the ground. Anyway.
The alarm went off at 3:50 this morning and we headed out to the Salton Sea. Two different targets that we're going to be looking at on the shores of the Salton Sea. One is a giant balloon-based target that we're going to be looking at from 10 miles across. The other one is a 9-foot boat-based target that we'll be looking at from the shore. One group, the balloon team, went to Desert Shores. That's our target on the other side of the Salton Sea. The other group came to the Salton Sea recreational area. That's the observing team. And we set it up so that we could raise a balloon up in the air and see how high it had to be before you could see it on the other shore.
The idea is that if the Earth is curved, as scientists tell us, across a span of 9.61 miles, we should be able to predict that an object about 34 feet tall would be completely hidden under the horizon, under the curvature. But if the Earth is flat, you should be able to see it right away.
IIG's second blunder of the day is a common mistake made by globe believers. Not seeing distant objects that are close to the ground does not necessitate a curved surface. It usually just means that there's a lot of haze, pollution, and moisture in the air between you and the object. The closer to the ground the distant object is, the more prevalent these atmospheric distortions are. For example, I filmed this train for about 7 miles, and it never went over a curve. It did eventually disappear, but into the haze, not over a curve. This section of track right here, it's less than a mile away from me, yet I can't see it. Does that mean it's hidden behind the curve, and the train is now flying above the curve? It turned into an airplane? And where are the wheels? Well, they're the first to disappear because they are the closest to the ground where the atmospheric distortion is the greatest. You are seeing the train disappear from the bottom up for the same reason we see boats disappear from the bottom up. Not due to curvature, but due to atmospheric distortion. The difference is that the distortion over water all looks blue, instead of green and yellow and red and black and silver like the distortion in this train video. And when the distortion is all blue, it's hard to distinguish it from the water itself, and so it appears as if the boat is disappearing over blue water instead of into blue atmospheric haze. So now imagine somebody standing on the track next to the train here, holding a couple balloons. Would you see that person or their balloons? Not on this hazy day. But if I'd filmed this train on a clearer, cooler day with less atmospheric distortion, we'd be able to see the train and the person with their balloons. In fact, many people have been making this point using observational evidence for quite a while now. They simply shoot footage of the same distant objects from the same location, but on different days. Some days the object is completely obscured by atmospheric distortion, and other days not so much. The object is always there, it's just that sometimes it's blocked from our view by haze. Of course, the globe believers say the object is always hidden by the curve of the Earth, and sometimes refraction just looms it up and around that curve so that we can see it. They are welcome to that belief, but they are arguing facts not in evidence, since it has never been shown that refraction can project objects and light sources up and around an obstruction so that observers on the other side of the obstruction can see them. And they're arguing against facts in evidence, because everyone has seen the real effects of refraction obscuring and distorting objects that are otherwise clearly visible. By the way, my train finally began to disappear at about 7 miles, but notice that it didn't disappear over a curve. Instead, it just faded into the haze of the atmosphere from the bottom up, like boats do. But getting back to the Salton Sea, did you notice how Ross mentioned 34 feet? It's because at the average eye height of 5.5 feet and at a distance of 10 miles, the hidden amount is 34 feet according to Ball Earth math. But you notice anything missing here? Why isn't he accounting for Mick West's ludicrous standard refraction? That would bring it down to 27 feet instead of 34. Maybe he didn't need to account for it because it hadn't been invented yet. You know, like the Van Allen radiation belts. But come to think of it, the only people who use Mick's standard refraction are certain flat earthers who are trying to err on the side of the globe. Stephen Hawking didn't use it when he verified the globe with a laser that hit exactly 6 feet higher at a 3-mile distance, just like the 8 inches per mile squared rule of thumb calls for. And Hawking wasn't using standard refraction when he was able to further prove the globe by seeing the helicopter at exactly 24 feet from 6 miles away. Again, right in line with 8 inches per mile squared. So then I guess we really shouldn't be surprised that neither Nat Geo nor IIG considered such nonsense when they tried to prove the globe, right? After all, nobody else is using it. Besides, it's like a weatherman calling for standard clouds or standard wind patterns tomorrow. It's utter nonsense. Anyway, let's see how their first test went.
We were in constant conversation, and they were telling us at what level the target was. When it got to a certain level and we could see it, then we asked them again what height it is. What height is it? Is the balloon in the air?
What height is the balloon?
And we couldn't see it until it was 45 feet actually up in the air.
Okay, we can see the two balloons, and we can see the target flying now, but there's a little bit of a mirror effect, but the target's now bobbing right about at the brake line.
So yeah, this verifies that there is a pretty serious curvature over 10 miles across a body of water like this.
What do you extrapolate from that?
That the Earth is a globe, and we're just confirming what we've always known.
So you were supposed to be able to see it at 27 feet using Mickey's math, at 34 feet using normal people math, but you didn't see it until 45 feet? Hey James, did you even stop and wonder why you couldn't see it until it was 11 feet higher than where you were supposed to see it? Obviously not. Heck, James didn't even stop to wonder why Josh Vail was able to see the balloons through his P900 before they even raised them up off of Capri Road.
You can see both of them. Perfect. Yep. All right, Josh, help them get eyes on us. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally us. Yeah.
Who is it?
This is Joshua.
I know how to find you. Find Joshua.
Okay,
Joshua has seen the balloon.
Okay, I'm gonna call Nathan right now. He's got eyes on it.
All right, for sure.
Josh Vail.
Josh Vail. But he sees where it is, and point to it, and look there.
Yeah, go. Okay, Nathan.
So how far would you say we're off the water right now?
I'd say 10 feet, maybe?
Yeah, I think I'd say that too. I mean, 15 at the very most.
Yeah, I don't think that much.
So they were seeing the balloons at only 10 feet off the water, but also couldn't see them until they were 45 feet up? Unfortunately, Josh's P900 wasn't recording. But no matter, a lot of us have confirmed his observation on film since then. But right now I want to get back to this 45-foot balloon observation. Do you see what I do? Yep, IIG's third blunder of the day. Let's take a look at how Earth curvature is supposed to work. This blue guy is our observer at the wreck area, and the red arrow represents the 45-foot height of the balloons when he could finally see them. The dotted line is the blue guy's line of sight, and the green arc is the curvature of the 10 miles of water between the observer and the balloons. The blue guy cannot see under that wall of curved water, which is why the balloons must reach a height of 45 feet before he can see them over the curved wall of water. So when the blue guy finally sees the balloons at 45 feet, what should he see? Well, he should see a couple of balloons rising directly above a wall of water, right? Like this. What would he never see? An inversion layer and an inferior mirage that originated 10 miles away and behind a 22-foot bulge of curvy water. If the actual balloons are finally peeking up over the observer's horizon here, then how is he also seeing the inferior mirage of them here, below his horizon? And even the inferior mirage balloons are clearly above the waterline. So James Underwood's, quote, confirming what we've always known, amounts to a 5-foot diameter balloon becoming visible above an inversion layer at approximately 9 balloon diameters, i.e. 45 feet, above the waterline. Exactly what you'd expect to see looking over 10 miles of flat and level Salton Sea during hazy atmospheric conditions. So how'd they fare on their other attempt at, quote, confirming what we've always known?
The next test was a boat-based target, which is, as you can see, a series of stripes. And the idea was to get a camera pretty close to the level of the water, send the boat out, and watch these horizontal stripes disappear.
Sydney Silver made this banner. She's also the brains behind doing these tests in the first place, and the one who set the whole thing in motion by inviting IIG to peer review the observations. The link to her excellent in-depth video about how it all took place is in the description of this video. Anyway, the banner is 6 feet tall, with each stripe being about a foot wide.
Okay, so that's them at 1.22 miles. That's just at the horizon, so we're not starting to lose any of the stripes yet.
Judging by James' mention of 1.22 miles to the horizon, he is estimating the camera height at about 1 foot.
It was difficult to see the boat at 3 miles out when the effect would be most pronounced, but we did lose, I think, the majority of one stripe at the bottom.
Here they come. Okay, so I'm zoomed in as far as I can, just barely see the red.
So it was about what we expected to see.
Okay, this frame capture is from right when James was saying the boat was 1.22 miles away. You could claim that half of the bottom red stripe is hidden behind curvature if you wanted to. But since we are supposed to be able to see everything at that distance on a ball earth, no such claim is made. This shot is at 3 miles out, as the boat is maneuvering to point the banner towards the observation area. Does it look like any more of the bottom red stripe is missing compared to the 1 mile distance? Here they are side by side. Is there a detectable difference between the two? You could argue that there's actually more of the bottom red stripe missing in the closer one. One thing's for sure, there's nothing here that would suggest Earth curvature. This one is after they've successfully maneuvered the boat so the banner is facing the observers. At 3 miles with a camera height of 1 foot, over 2 feet should be hidden behind curve. Yet we see all but about 6 inches of the bottom red stripe, which is clearly only hidden behind the small waves you can see in the foreground. And do you see the water line above and behind the boat in the distance? If the lower red banner stripe is disappearing over curvy water, then no water can be visible behind this point, where the stripe and the more distant water disappears behind the curve. So on a ball earth, a little more than 2 feet of the banner and all the more distant water should be gone, leaving only the top 4 feet of the banner peeking up over a wall of water with nothing but the distant shore in the background. Instead, we see something completely different, and we see the same basic thing in all 3 stills, which makes it abundantly clear that the boat is simply moving farther away across a flat body of water, causing the stripes to compress, distort, and be obscured by miles of haze and compounded ripples, making it harder for the eyes and the cameras to resolve them in great detail. Note that the waterline is well beyond the boat and the alleged curve in all 3 stills, making the idea that the boat is going over a curve ludicrous. But also note that the boat and banner are disappearing from the bottom up. Just like my train did, just like my dad's golf cart did at a quarter of a mile away on a flat and dry road, and just like this dog's face, the people's feet, and all the bushes did from a quarter mile away on that same flat and dry road. But this is what passes for ball earth proof: boats that are clearly not going over any curve, and balloons that are clearly not peaking up over the curvy bulge of water that the ball earth requires. So yes, all distant objects will eventually disappear from the bottom up due to distortion, perspective, and angular resolution limitations. It's only due to Earth curve when ball Earth math requires it to be. And with this shoddy so-called science, people like James Underdown can feel superior and talk down to people whose eyes are open to see what's really going on.
I've seen this so many times that when someone is presented with massive evidence right in front of their face, they still find wiggle room to somehow get around and land at their original belief.
Let's see if those words come back to bite Mr. Underdown on the ass, because since that first gathering, Wendell Walton's Flat Reality Earth Explorers and a bunch of other truth seekers have been back to the Salton Sea a number of times to do a whole slew of other observations. They've filmed lasers from beach level over the same 10-mile stretch of sea where IIG couldn't see the balloons until they were 45 feet in the air. And how do the indoctrinated James Underdowns of the world try to explain this observation away? With the completely unsubstantiated claim that objects and light sources can refract up and around an obstruction so that an observer on the other side of the obstruction can see them. The idea is that the actual point source, not just dispersed light rays, follows the curve up and around to an observer on the other side via atmospheric refraction. So then what about this shot? Did the light begin to follow along the curve only to shoot up into the sky at the peak of the water bulge? Like this? Because it should be clear to see that this is the source and this is the beam. If not, maybe you can tell from this 18-mile version we did a few months later. Can you see that the bright white hot spot is the source light itself, and the green line is the reflection across 18 miles of flat Salton Sea? Or do you suppose a reflection can also follow the 155-foot curve up and around to the observers 18 miles away? Can you shine a light on any sphere and have the reflection follow the curve around? Here's an even better shot of it. Do you really suppose the source of this light is 77 feet behind a bulge of water right now, and that refraction can project this white hot spot up around that bulge so that the observers 18 miles away can see it? It's silly enough to claim that sunlight can cause reflections on water around the backside of a ball, all the way to the feet of the observer. But now you're asking us to believe that a laser can reflect up around the front part of the ball, and then reflect off the water around the back part of the ball, all the way to the feet of the observer? And forget about the reflection for a minute. What about the light source itself? Saying that refraction allows us to see this point source that should be hidden behind 155 feet of curve is like saying the sun set for a guy on the Terminator line, but another guy already on the dark side of the earth can still see the disk of the sun refracting around the curve to his eyes. And what was it James was just saying about wiggle room excuses?
I've seen this so many times that when someone is presented with massive evidence right in front of their face, they still find wiggle room to somehow get around and land at their original belief.
You're preaching to the choir, brother, because we present massive evidence right in the faces of globe believers on a daily basis and are constantly met with post hoc wiggle room arguments. Here's some more observational evidence that you'll try to wiggle your way out of. There was the mirror flash from beach level to beach level at 10 miles distant, and then there was the 10-mile flashlight all the way to the water level.
Yep. Oh yeah, we see you guys. We got you guys. Oh, got it. Turn it off. Got it. Nice. Okay, now see how low you can get it. Turn it back on. Okay, now don't turn it off. Keep it on, and then see how low you can. As you tell me how low you get it.
Ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, we're going down.
Okay. We can still see it. 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 We can still see it.
No way.
Yeah, we can still see it.
We can still see it.
We can still see it.
It's 4 inches. Yeah, I'm about 4 inches off the water.
Get out of here. Still see it.
Put it in the water.
Put it on the water.
Hey, I'm throwing it in the water.
Oh my god.
We lost it. We lost it.
Then there were subsequent mirror flash observations of 8, 10, and even 18 miles last March. All of these were beach to beach, with both camera and mirror less than 5 feet off water level. And that brings us to our next round of tests on June 1st and 2nd of 2019, almost a year to the day of the IIG tests. When Wendell and I got there on Saturday to scout some locations, the haze was terrible. There are actually a bunch of mountains out here, but we couldn't see them. A little later, and the haze had burned off enough that we could see a very distorted western shore about 10 miles away, but nothing yet to the south. A little later still, and the haze was really burning off, making visibility a lot easier. Jaron and Nathan arrived at the rec area with their cameras, and since Wendell and I had to go to Salton City so he could check into his motel room anyway, we all decided to try an impromptu 12-mile mirror flash from Salton City to the North Shore rec area. And even though the mirrors and cameras were very close to the water level as usual, Nathan had no problem seeing our flash from the rec area. And we had no problem recording their flash from Salton City. But we didn't go out there to catch a 12-mile flash. We came to catch a 31-mile flash to top the 18-mile distance we got back in March. So we got out there Sunday morning before sunrise, but unfortunately the haze was even worse than the day before. Plus the wind causing the cameras to shake and making the waves choppy didn't help our cause. We didn't even attempt the 31-mile flash, but Wendell did go to Bombay Beach to see if we could recapture the 18-mile flash we got in March. We were able to see the Bombay Tower, but the inversion layer and waves made it impossible to see Wendell flashing the mirror directly underneath it. This should give you an idea of what we were up against. The train starts off clearly visible, but also clearly distorted. But now watch what happens as it moves farther from us and closer to Wendell. Notice how the train is simply disappearing into the inversion layer. Not over a curve, but into the inversion layer. Meanwhile, Wendell is also hidden behind that layer over here somewhere. It was so hazy early on that we couldn't even catch a 10-mile flash from Capri to the rec area. Jaron was flashing a mirror from right next to this telephone pole for over an hour, and although we could see the pole, we never saw a flash. The miraging from the passing cars indicates that he was right in the thick of the inversion layer. The haze hung around till late into the afternoon, and we were starting to think it would be a wasted day. But then, after being unsuccessful with the 18-mile reattempt, Wendell, Russ, and Randy eventually made it to the North Shore rec area with Wendell's new and improved mirror he calls Gigantor. And boy did it work.
Yeah, we're seeing it. Just keep going right where you're going. There we go. Now I got you in camera. All right, there we got you. Hold on a minute.
Can you zoom in and see that? Oh, dude. Easy to see that.
Yeah, we got it zoomed in.
Look at that shit. 10 miles across.
So how long have you been filming waiting for it?
Today?
Yeah.
Well, we got here at 5:30 in the morning.
66 feet of curvature.
It was too hazy. We're getting you, Wendell.
10 times 10.
So it's now, we've been here, what, 8 hours or something? Yeah, that's beautiful, Wendell. I'm just getting it nonstop. It's recording. Holy cow, that's blinding. It's blinding when you're not looking through the camera. You're actually blinding us, man.
Dude, it doesn't even go away. It's just not so good. That's the negative.
Aside from showing up with a much larger reflecting apparatus, we also thought it would help if, instead of short flash bursts, the observers guided the mirror operators to the sweet spot so we could have a steady stream of light, making the mirrors easier to find in the small camera viewfinders.
Okay, now go just a little higher. Yep, yeah, hold it right there. We're seeing a steady stream of you now.
I can see it here.
Okay, we're seeing a steady stream. That's what we want. Yeah, just up. Now you drop just a little. Keep it up just a little more. Okay, keep going up. We're gonna get the. Okay, right there. Stop. Hold it there. Don't even move it. That is beautiful. That is freaking beautiful. It's like we're looking at the sun, dude.
Oh, and remember Josh Vail seeing the IIG balloons at 10 feet above water level before IIG was able to see them at 45 feet? Well, the previous mega flash footage I just showed was taken from on top of Capri Road. Then we took the cameras down to the beach level to see if we could see the flash from there, and this happened.
You know what else? I'm seeing two distinct circles, one for each mirror. Side by side. It looks like I'm looking.
4 mirrors.
Yeah, it's 4 mirrors. Well, I'm seeing 2 distinct circles. It looks like headlights coming at me on a dark road.
Well, there's your headlights, Ron.
Turns out it looked like headlights because it was headlights. I couldn't see it through the viewfinder in direct sunlight at the time, but I'm sure we can all see not only Jaron's car with the lights on, but every other car parked on the rec area lot. And this was from beach level, about 4 feet off the water. So there should be no doubt that Josh Vail did see the IIG balloons on Capri Road, since my view to the rec parking lot is actually 10 to 12 feet lower than Josh's view to the balloons. By the way, all of these cars should be hidden behind 28 feet of earth curve. Anyway, long story short, I know, too late for that, right? But we were eventually able to salvage the day with some serious 10-mile mega flashes. In this footage, the center of the mirror was 6 feet off water level and the camera was 4 feet off water level. So these flashes you're seeing should be hidden by 32 feet of curvature. We went down there thinking that early morning would be best before the heat of the day brought on the haze. Both Saturday and Sunday proved us to be 100% wrong on that notion. We also learned that the heat of June makes visibility over long distances much tougher than it was for us in March. Keep in mind that IIG and Nat Geo also did their tests in the heat of June and ended up with killer inversion layers like we did. We'll be going back this winter, most likely December or January, and would like to extend a cordial invitation to James Underdown and the IIG, Nat Geo, and ABC News teams to join us one more time.
Get to the point where you're a flat earther, you've talked yourself into some pretty serious wacky arguments. So many wacky ideas surrounding flat earth belief that it's just hard to tell how they ended up in these spots. We just wanted to show them to their faces what the evidence is. We believe in giving everybody a chance to present their evidence.
Okay then, James. We've been presenting our evidence ever since you left the Salton Sea. We've gotten 8, 10, 12, and even the 18-mile mirror flash you're watching now. The mirror and camera were both about 4 feet off the water level, which means the flash should be hidden by 157 feet of curve. And here's that same 18 miles and 157 feet of alleged curve with lasers fired and filmed from both sides. We'll put that 18-mile evidence up against your 10-mile footage of balloons rising above a thick inversion layer. Not above a bulge of curved water, mind you, but above a distant layer of haze. And we'll put it up against your boat footage, where there is no difference between 1 mile away and 3 miles away, at which point there should be more than 2 feet hidden behind curve, instead of a few inches hidden behind some ripples on the water. James, we believe you came down the first time with good, honest intentions, but we all know a little bit more now than we knew back then. You talked down to us from a false sense of accomplishment, and were even on TV claiming victory over the stupid and wacky flat earthers based on evidence that would be laughed out of peer review. We'll be back this winter. Will you put your money where your mouth is and join us for the 31-mile mirror flash and laser attempt? Or will you hide behind the shoddy evidence you touted as proof last time and make wiggle room excuses?
I've seen this so many times that when someone is presented with massive evidence right in front of their face, they still find wiggle room to somehow get around and land at their original belief.